Artists, let's get started with this 3-part video that's very important. I put 3 lessons in one video so that you don't have to dig through and find what you need when you're working from home. So we're going to begin a study that extends our pop art study from when we made food. And we're going to talk about a pop artist named Jean-Michel Basquiat. So we're not going to delay that anymore because it's going to start with a book. So in order to have a visual reminder within the video, I'm going to hold up this sign that says Part 1. I know it reads backwards because of the video recording app that I use. But that way, if you need to fast forward through the video later on, or you need to go back and find Part 1, you'll be able to do that. The same with Part 2 and Part 3. So as we begin, I'm going to change my camera view, and I'm going to try to make sure that I have a good view of this book. And of course, I'm going to need to kind of bend down. You might even see my little nose poking in underneath the camera so that I can show you my book. This is a cartoon of Jean-Michel Basquiat. Here are some of his favorite colors. And this book is written by Maria Isabella Sanchez Vergara. The illustrations are by Luciano Lozano. Jean-Michel was a talented boy from Brooklyn whose mother was Puerto Rican and father was Haitian. He was only 4 when he started drawing, eager to show the world what a great artist he could be. Looks like he started drawing on a surface that's not very appropriate for your family's home. Make sure you're doing this project on the correct equipment. Oh, I apologize. There's his parents looking a little worried about their wall. I apologize if you can hear this table squeak or see it shake a little bit within the video. For Jean-Michel, a perfect Saturday was going to Manhattan with his mother to visit its wonderful museums. Back home, he spent all afternoon drawing cartoons on scrap paper while listening to music with his father. You may or may not know, this is how people used to listen to music. Before downloads, before CDs, before cassette tapes, and before 8-tracks. Probably students at Landon Road don't know anything about most of that list except for downloads. One day, when he was 7, Jean-Michel was hit by a car while playing in the street. He had to rest in bed for weeks. To help him pass the time, his mother gave him the most useful present he could have received, an anatomy book. Now that may sound like a strange gift that would get someone excited, but you can't draw people if you don't understand what holds the people up, like our bone structure and our muscular structure. Skulls, teeth, skin, skeletons, the book was simply fascinating. Going through its pages, Jean-Michel realized how powerful and fragile the human body is. He decided to use all he had learned in his paintings. There's a scan of those pages real quickly. Things turned upside down when his mother got ill. Jean-Michel dropped out of school and ran away from home. Luckily, he found his place in City as a School, an unconventional setting where he met other artists like himself. Not long afterward, the city of New York woke up with messages spray painted on buildings all over Manhattan. They were signed with a name that Jean-Michel and his friend Ad Diaz had made up, S-A-M-O. It's short for Samo, or same old. It was the beginning of the graffiti era, and Jean-Michel was at the center of it. In the blink of an eye, he went from selling t-shirts and homemade postcards to becoming the new star of the art scene. There he is signing an autograph. There's people waiting to get their picture taken with Jean-Michel. Locked up in his studio, Jean-Michel spent hours on the floor, mixing pencil, oil, sticks, and crayons. with cut-up quotes he found in comics and history books. The result was a beautiful mess of paintings that people fell in love with. I wish we could get that comfortable and make a mess and leave it out for a while in the art room. Jean-Michel believed that everyone deserves a place in art. Instead of painting kings and queens like many other artists, he turned his paintbrush to waiters, cooks, and prisoners, and himself. If there was someone he wanted to meet, it was the famous pop artist Andy Warhol, one of his idols. After their first lunch, Jean-Michel went home, and within 2 hours, he sent Andy a wet painting of the two of them. Here they are having lunch. It was the beginning of a great friendship. Jean-Michel and Andy spent lots of time together working, painting, and going to parties. They were the brand new painter and pop art legend, the craziest pair on the scene. In less than 10 years, Jean-Michel made thousands of paintings and drawings. But he also was a poet, a musician, and a graffiti prodigy that influenced the work of many artists that came after him. And by painting life in his own unique way, Jean-Michel became the most important artist of the 20th century, one of the most important artists, rather. The talented child who once told his father, "Papa, I'm going to be famous." And in the back of this book is a timeline. Jean-Michel Basquiat died at a very young age. He was born in 1960 and he died in 1988. While he was born in Brooklyn, New York, his parents were from different countries, and he used the knowledge that they instilled in him from their experience in other countries in the way that he painted and drew. I will share this timeline in my classroom. If you're learning from home, I'm going to show you the cover of this book so that you might find it online or possibly at your local library if you would like to check it out and read the timeline in depth for yourself. I'm sure you noticed on the last page, Jean-Michel had drawn and then painted a crown on top of his head. By the way, this is part 2 for our video purposes. Now, the crown I just mentioned on top of his head, flip my view back, that crown has 3 points. It represents 3 things to Jean-Michel. The heritage of his parents I just mentioned, and his own heritage. It also represents the way he made art and poetry, and the fact that he was great at boxing. So if you see, there's mainly 3 points on this crown. The 3 points represent he thinks he is of royal status. He is so good at poetry, painting, and boxing. He even painted a picture of himself with boxing gloves, and his friend Andy Warhol was in the painting too. He also thought that those 3 points represented his mother, his father, and himself, and all the cultural heritage that all 3 of them bring to the art table. One of Jean-Michel's most famous paintings is called Pez Dispenser. Remember, pop artists always painted things that were popular. And even today, in 2021, Pez dispensers are still pretty popular. His favorite Pez dispenser at the time was a dinosaur Pez dispenser. So here is a copy of my Pez dispenser in Jean-Michel's style, and we are going to create the same thing. Now, this is a mixed media project. So to get from beginning to end, we've got to mix up our equipment. In the art room, the correct term is media. So we're gonna start with a medium we all have, regular pencil. You're going to need black paint, either acrylic or tempera. And as I've told you in the past, acrylic is great because it dries fast. It also stains everything it touches. So be careful, wear an apron or an old t-shirt. Make sure you've got something protecting your workspace, like a tablecloth or a placemat. If you still get a newspaper, put a few sheets of newspaper down. That works well too. And of course, if you're going to be painting, you'll need a paintbrush. I would keep a piece of paper towel handy just for drips and drops and spills. And then part 3 of this project, which we are not on to yet, is going to be adding, these are called abstracts in the background, adding the color to our Pez dispenser and adding that wonderful crown that you see on top. I made mine 4 points for Jean-Michel, pop art, his friend Andy Warhol, and me. You can decide how many points you're gonna have on your crown and what they represent. So to begin with, you're gonna get, or you're gonna pick up, if you're working from home, a piece of cardstock. This is like paper, but it's a little bit tougher. So when we paint on it, it won't get quite so warped and wavy from being wet with paint. Now, when I transfer my camera view, I'm gonna need to check it again. And this is going to take 1 art class. As the book I read took 1 art class, drawing and painting your dinosaur portion of your Pez dispenser is gonna take 1 art class. And then when I show the sign for part 3, that's the 3rd day, sometimes the 3rd and 4th art class, depending on how much time you need. So I will turn my camera view, and I'm gonna give a quick drawing lesson to help you out if you think you're gonna have some problems drawing Pez dispenser. So what we're gonna start with, of course, is pencil so we can fix our mistakes. And we're gonna draw a dinosaur that's about the same shape as the one pictured in Basquiat's Pez dispenser, which is copied for you below this video box. And we're gonna start by drawing lightly. I'm gonna try to draw dark enough that you can see by drawing an oval for the head, because that tells us where the rest of our dinosaur should go. And I'm probably drawing a little too dark, okay? But I want you to be able to see this on the video. You should draw lightly so that you can erase if you need to. I'm gonna make a little indentation for the mouth, and I'm gonna erase that little spot so that you can kind of see where his mouth is. All right? For the body, I'm gonna draw a wide banana or crescent shape that connects into the head. So here's my wide banana. I'm probably gonna make that a little longer there just to make sure his tail's a little longer. I may take care of that later. I'm gonna check my camera view again. All right. We're gonna add 2 arms to the body and 2 legs that have triangular shaped toes. So the arms are gonna be a little bit short. If you know a lot about dinosaurs, you know the ones that stand up on their hind legs or back legs like this, they typically have pretty short arms. I'm gonna make the legs a little thicker and the toes thicker too. And this leg is more in front, so it's gonna look bigger so it looks closer up. And you might wanna make yours a little bit fatter. Jean-Michel Basquiat's Pez dispenser dinosaur was a little chunkier. Mine looks like maybe he's been on a diet. So that's okay, as long as you don't mind, but if it's fatter, you get to paint more. And painting more is adding to the fun. So I wanna make sure that you can have as much fun as possible. Now, in order for this to be ready for part 3, I need to finish part 2 by painting my dinosaur all black. And I'm gonna let it dry so that it's ready for next week's art time. This can get tricky depending on how small you drew some of your areas. My little indentation or little mark where the mouth is kind of tiny, so I had to slow down and get kind of careful. Plus, I like to really spread my paint out. It makes my paint last longer, if I spread it out and use it wisely. And I know kids get so tired of grown-ups saying use things wisely, but when it comes to art supplies, you really do want to use them as wisely as possible. They'll last longer, and art supplies are not usually inexpensive. If you need a lot of them, or you want a lot of them, you're going to find out that if you don't use them wisely, it can get very expensive very fast. So I'm always trying to show you how to use your equipment in the best way possible so that you can use it more. And you can save your pennies and dimes and nickels and quarters and dollars for more art supplies later, maybe even different ones, if you use the ones you have really well. So I'm spreading my paint out, and it's also doing another good thing for me besides just saving my art equipment. It's also drying faster. And if you have doggies and kitties or little brothers and sisters and you're working at home, you really do want this to dry pretty quickly. You may not have an absolute safe place for wet paintings like I do in the art room. So this will help things get dry a little bit quicker. If you have to force this dry, you may use a hairdryer on a low setting if mom or dad or your grown-ups at your house say, we got to get that thing dry and we got to put it away. We can't have wet paintings around this space. I understand. So if you've got to force it dry, low setting, hang on to the corner of your paper so the hairdryer doesn't blow it away, and put it away for part 3. Once the black paint's dry, it's ready for part 3. So there is my Pez dispenser. And I got a little bit messy, so of course I need to clean up my mess. Don't forget to do that as you're working. Clean your brush out really well by rinsing it, probably in the kitchen sink, till it's nice and clean. Let it lay down to get dry so it doesn't get bent. Put your paint away with the lid on tightly, and any mess you left out in a family space, clean that up so that nobody else has to sit where your mess is. So now, I'm going to swap this view for this one. And I know it's backwards. So for part 3, you're going to take care of all of these details and that wonderful Basquiat crayon. These pieces you see in the background are called abstracts. They're just shapes that don't really have a name, and I use something called Crayola color sticks to make mine. In my classroom, we'll be using the ones that I have. If you picked up your art kit from the Lantern Road lobby, then you will find some Crayola color sticks in there. Crayola color sticks are basically this. They are the color only out of colored pencils. However, they're stronger because they're in stick form, and they don't smear, and they don't get dusty like chalk or smear like oil pastel, as I said. But they give you bright Crayola color in a way that also draws on top of your black paint. So one of the first things you want to do is you want to use your color sticks to make that red mouth, white teeth, red eyes, and white outlines, plus nostrils or nose holes on your dino. After you do that, you're going to take care of some of these bright yellow and red highlights on your dino. That's going to help him show up and almost look like he's vibrating with excitement. On this example, I painted my spikes. On other examples, you can draw them in with your red and yellow. I also put some white highlights on my dino. And then I moved on to the abstracts in the background. I wanted to make sure I put some black lines that were wild on top of my wild abstracts. So I used some scribble. I used some tic-tac-toe looking graph. I use one that looks kind of like a palm tree on top of an abstract that looks like a palm tree. If you're not sure how many abstracts to draw, a good number is to draw as many as your age times 2. So if you're 5, you're gonna draw 10. If you're 6, you're gonna draw 12. You get the idea. The last thing you wanna make sure you leave room for and take care of is that Basquiat-style crown, kind of floating above the Pez dispenser's head. It's what makes the dinosaur look like he's moving and kind of excited. So when you are on to part 3, your color sticks are what you use for your abstracts and for your details on your dino, and finally for that Basquiat crayon. Now, my friends, if you do not have the opportunity, or your grown-ups do not, to pick up a kit and you're working from home, substitute paint with Sharpie marker or any dark marker you've got. Substitute color sticks with crayons or colored pencils that you already have at home. I just really like to give you the opportunity to paint as often as I can because we aren't together, so I'm trying to make a way for you to be able to do this at home. Good luck, artists, and please remember not to do this project all in one sitting. Even if you listen to the video all the way through to the end, that's fine, because practice will make better, as none of us are perfect. But make sure that you are doing this in all 3 parts, taking at least 3 weeks to get your Basquiat Pez dispenser style design finished.